We appreciate you making time this evening. I'm Amy Unell, fellow Dookie. I'm gonna kick it to our wonderful moderators to introduce ourselves and then meet our panelists.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Colza Harris. I am a rising senior in undergrad at Duke. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm going to be representing Duke Business Oriented Women, where I serve as the Vice President of Events for Diversified Industries. And I'm super excited to be hosting this panel tonight. And I'll be passing it to Shira and Peter to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shira Levine. I'm a rising 2L at Duke Law. I'm the current co-president of the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, where we hope to combine sports, entertainment, and law into interdisciplinary study. And excited to speak with you a little bit more about this and learn from all our panelists tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Osterly. I'm going into my second year at Fuqua School of Business at Duke. I'm the co-president of the Media, Entertainment, and Sports Club at Fuqua. I worked at NBCUniversal in New York before coming to school and looking to move back into the entertainment industry after graduating. And so it's great to talk to our panelists tonight and share this with the rest of the Duke community. And with that, we'd like to officially thank everyone here for coming together for the 7th episode of the new Demon Live series. We are very grateful to have you all join us for this hour and hope that everyone is safe and well. Please note that we are recording this Zoom session to post in the Demon Lounge, and you can view it afterwards as you wish.
And a special thanks to you in Duke in LA, Duke in New York, Duke Arts, Duke Alumni, Fuqua's Media, Entertainment, Sports Club, Duke's Law, Sports, Entertainment Law Society, and Duke's Business Oriented Women for collaborating. We received dozens of questions submitted by students and alumni, so we won't be taking any live questions, but we're excited to hear all our answers tonight.
And we will post the panelists' emails in the chat, so you may follow up with them directly. To start, panelists, I'm going to be asking you to introduce yourselves briefly, your name, where you work, and what you do, and then we will dive into your questions. And we kindly ask that the panelists be brief in their answers so that we can get to everyone. Thank you very much. So to start off, could we please have Kristen introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Baldwin in Los Angeles. I work at Netflix. I'm in the original film motion picture business affairs group. Before Netflix, I've been here 2 years. Before Netflix, I was at CAA, which is a talent agency where I was in the motion picture group and business affairs on the other side of the deals.
I wanted to hear what she worked at previously.
CAA, Creative Artists Agency.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Hello, everyone. Jennifer Baltimore. I am a Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs at Universal Music Group and class of 92 from Duke Law.
Thank you. Next, we have Ben.
Hey, everyone. Ben Burchuk. I work at Facebook on sports programming and partnerships. Holed up here outside of New York at the moment. Duke class of 04. And prior to Facebook, I was at Wasserman, which is a sports consulting and athlete representation agency. And prior to that, at Comcast in Philadelphia.
Great. And Jonas?
Hi, I'm Jonas Blank, SVP for Business and Legal Affairs at NBCUniversal. I do content and app distribution as well as content acquisition for Peacock.
Thank you. Lori?
Hi, Lori Conkling, graduate of the Fuqua School of Business. I currently serve as the Global Head of Partnerships for YouTube TV and Google Fiber. And I've been at Google for just over a year. Prior to that, I was at NBCUniversal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll have Karen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Duke class of 89. I'm a partner at Grubman, Shire, Meiselas, and Sachs in New York, which is a transactional entertainment and media law firm, which basically means we don't litigate. and happy to be here.
Thank you. Craig?
Hi, Craig Kurland. I'm Duke class of 93. I'm here in Los Angeles. I oversee business and content legal at Quibi, sort of the new mobile streaming service. I've been there pretty much since the inception. So I've been there a bit over a year. And then prior to that, I was about 5 years at Fox and actually almost 13 years at NBCUniversal before that.
Thank you. Derek?
Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Rhodes. I am Duke class of 2015. I'm currently living in Miami, Florida, where I'm the Director of Business Strategy for the Miami Heat. Prior to the Miami Heat, I held strategy roles at the Obama Foundation and Google, but sports is really rooted in my background, and happy to talk further about that. So looking forward to meeting everyone.
Great. Vipul?
Hey everybody, my name is Vipul Sharma. I graduated from Trinity in 2002. I joined Discovery Networks about 3 months ago as a senior director of digital distribution, prior to which I oversaw global video distribution for Vice Media here in Brooklyn. And maybe fun fact, I got my start in the entertainment industry at Bad Boy Records, where my first boss was one of Jennifer Baltimore's good friends.
Nice. And then last but not least, Kelsey.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelsey. I'm class Duke Trinity of 13, and I work for Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon's media brand company. I work in finance and strategic planning. I'm currently the manager there, and before that I worked in investment banking at Deutsche Bank in New York.
Thank you so much. So that is all of our panelists, and we will have Peter get started.
Thank you, Cole, and thank you again to our panelists for joining us tonight. I'm going to direct this first question to Ben, Karen, and Vipul. Other panelists can feel free to jump in as you like. What does working from home look like for you during this time? How has it changed how you interact with your team or your clients? And if possible, could you share an example of a project you're working on that has been particularly affected during this time?
I'll start. So basically, working from home during this time personally has been really great for me, because as a working mom who's worked full time throughout, I'm finally getting more of that work-life balance. So home with my kids, able to have dinner together every night. In fact, we're having all 3 meals together every day. Since my job is one where it's really 24/7, you're always on call, you're sort of never off the clock. It's not changed too much, other than obviously not being in the office, not being able to have face-to-face meetings. Someone earlier was talking about Zoom fatigue, but I actually am still in the phase where I'm enjoying Zoom because it's an opportunity to see people other than the people that I'm, self-isolating with. And I think in New York, maybe not so much in LA, where I think people are used to having more face-to-face meetings. In New York, a lot of times everything's done sort of over the phone. So it's actually been nice to actually see people.
On the Facebook side, I was already on a global team, so fairly used to video conference, working with people in Asia, Europe, West Coast. But it is tough to not be in the office and have the personal interaction. We work a lot with our product teams, and it's just not being able to grab 3 minutes with somebody at their desk is tough. It's harder when you're going back and forth on chat, email, VC. Small plug for our product, the Portal device, which is an awesome at-home device that we've been using to really help with that. In terms of a project that's been interrupted, a lot of us working content acquisition, content distribution, clearly with no live sports, there's not as much you can do. We were able to kind of quickly pivot some of our investments in fitness and endurance sports to a lot of at-home workout, lifestyle training content, as everybody's stuck at home. So that's been probably the biggest impact for me personally, is clearly when there's no live sports, what do you do? and you try to serve people with content that's relevant to them and that can keep them healthy and happy and fit. So we've really shifted from the pro sports angle to more of the trainers and creators and fitness influencers that are out there, which, you know, Laura, YouTube has a ton of that stuff as well. Amazon, everybody's kind of in the same boat, but it's been fun to dive into that space outside of the realm of pro sports.
Whoops. Oh, there we go. And just to add to kind of one thing that Ben pointed out, I think this working from home situation has really highlighted for probably most people just how important communication is, and really clear and concise communication, especially internally. So in terms, you know, not being able to have that face-to-face is really, I think, shining a light on the different ways in which people choose to communicate. And so really being able to adjust to those varying styles and kind of understanding how everyone as an individual communicates is something that this current situation has really, you know, brought home for me. Having overseen digital distribution at Discovery, for us being at basically the last step of the funnel, what's really been affected are some of the projects we're working on that pertain to current or on-air programming. So like many other 24/7 linear channels or television networks, you know, our programmers have had to adjust the shows that they program, you know, our premiere dates and programming guides based on the content that we have available, because all of a sudden with production on new series stopped, we have to make what we have in the can last a lot longer, if nothing else, given the extent to which, you know, this could continue with uncertainty into the future. So for me, what that means is a lot of my third-party distribution partners, I have to be able to kind of explain all of these changes to them, especially if it means that content we would have thought would be available all of a sudden needs to get pulled back or is going to get delayed.
Great, thank you so much. That was really great advice and good to know what changes are happening in the industry right now. It's clear that the coronavirus has been impacting a lot of how we do business and how, you know, the entertainment world is really trying to work with everything. So this kind of segues into my next question. So what advice do you have for students or alums hoping to break into the industry during this time? How can they set themselves apart as candidates, either for internships, full-time roles, personally for law school applicants, any of those things? And this question is directed at Craig and Kristen. Craig, if you could go first.
I mean, it's an interesting question too, because right now, right, it's you know, it's definitely a different time than we're used to, and it's a challenging time. I mean, as a general thing, I've always said to people on this one, to me, the number one thing that you're going to need to break into this industry, because it tends to be difficult, is passion and perseverance, right? Because that always is what comes through. You know, if you have a real desire to do it, you know, that will come through when you talk to people about it. And, you know, the perseverance, because you're going to have to kind of knock down a lot of doors and just be at the right place at the right time, because this industry doesn't seem to have a normal cadence, right? It's not like every year you get a new class of people who come in like you would just at a, you know, a law firm or at a company. It has to do with when the needs arise. So you kind of have to be there. The challenge I'm referring to is it's really about networking, right? The best way to get into the entertainment industry is through networking. And, you know, networking is challenged now, right? It's, you can't go do the informational meeting, stop by somebody's office, meet them for a coffee, right? All the things that you would do to network. So, you know, in the short term, that may be challenging, but you're going to have to just find sort of new ways to do it and things like that. And to the extent there are, the best thing also always to do is take as many classes, right? And whether they be actual classes, adjunct classes, anything where you can learn the subject matter and meet people who are involved with the subject matter is a great thing to do. So for like law students or young lawyers, any of that MCLE stuff that you have to do in your state, you know, the continuing legal education, if you can find ways to do it around entertainment, you're going to meet people who are in the business, and also you're going to become more knowledgeable about the different areas of, you know, of entertainment.
Great, thanks.
This is Kristen. So to sort of add on to what Craig said, I may not have said it in my introduction, but I am a lawyer, and that is often what we mean when we say business affairs. So my experience is more particular to lawyers. The good and the bad is there really isn't a roadmap for getting jobs in entertainment as a lawyer. So, when I went to law school, I didn't take any entertainment classes. I was a litigator in San Francisco before I moved to Los Angeles. I did nothing related to entertainment as a background. And that's okay. I think, as Craig said, it becomes really a relationship and networking exercise. And the good news is everybody on this call has an advantage already by being a member of this group, which did not exist when I moved to Los Angeles in 2005, and hit up everybody I could find that was a Duke alum, everybody I could find that was a UVA law alum, everybody I could find that had worked at Latham & Watkins Anywhere, which had been my law firm. So I think you have to work on the relationships, which is an extension of the networking. And I get a lot of requests for phone calls with people, which I appreciate. And right now it's all we can do. But if you can get yourself to Los Angeles, I will treat anybody to a free coffee at Netflix. So I find that's another great way to spend 15 minutes making a human connection with somebody. You get to see great lobbies. It's so fun to walk onto the lots of all of these places. And most people will find time to run downstairs and have a coffee with you in person. So if you can get yourself to New York or Los Angeles, I think you have an advantage already being a part of this group.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig and Kristen. That's really helpful to hear. And similarly, our next question is for Kelsey, Vipul, and Jennifer. And that is, looking back at your career, what is one piece of advice you wish you could give yourself earlier?
I'll start. That's fine. Being the lawyer, as I have, progressed in my career, I realized that a business understanding is really critical to being even more effective in advising on legal issues. And so the advice I would give myself early in my career is to increase my understanding of business and, understanding of P&Ls and just all of those things that factor into the deal making. And I just think that it makes for a better lawyer as you're advising business leaders.
I suppose I can go next. So this is particularly timely given that, my first job out of Duke was for one of Jennifer's good friends in the music industry. If I could go back, I would tell myself while I was at Duke to not feel pigeonholed or constrained by what a typical Duke student might be expected to pursue career-wise. And I say that because as an economics and computer science major, especially back in the early, and this really continued, I would say, through the 2000s, a lot of people, if you were an econ major at Duke, the expectation was you'll go to Wall Street in some form or to a consulting firm. Personally, I was just really fortunate to have an older brother who had graduated from Duke 4 years earlier and said, look, there's a whole wide world of opportunity out there that's beyond the world of finance. And that's really what opened my eyes to all of these possibilities. And I was just really fortunate, as Craig mentioned, timing wise, that an opportunity to join a record label came along. And now almost 20 years later, I feel really fortunate and grateful to be able to say that I still work in this industry.
And finally, Kelsey.
Sure. I totally agree with what Jennifer and both before said. I think for me personally, I worked in media investing before Hello Sunshine, and what it really taught me was to have an educated opinion about stuff, about the industry as a whole, and be able to talk to people about it, and really be able to kind of discuss intelligently what you think kind of the headwinds are in the industry and what you think the trends are. I think networking is one of the most important things, and having an opinion, people will respect you a little bit more throughout the discussions. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And now turning to maybe a more specific piece of advice that's very relevant right now. I'll direct this next question to Lori, and would love to hear Jennifer and Jonas speak to it as well after that. How can students and alumni find a balance between staying in touch with alumni about career opportunities during this very difficult time, and then also understanding and respecting that people may be facing difficult challenges that have nothing to do with that cold email that you just sent?
So I think it's really important to understand that people are trying to figure out what a work-life balance looks like in this new world that we're living in. And so, send your email during work hours when someone is likely to be in front of their computer, because some things that come in, after hours or on weekends may get lost, in the other emails people are catching up on. I think it's also really, really helpful if when you send an email or do your outreach, you're very specific about what you're looking for. Is it, advice on securing a job in this new situation we all find ourselves in? Is it that you're trying to get a better understanding of a particular company or a particular, role? Being specific allows me to help you, and it may be that what you're interested in isn't actually what I do, but you came to me because of the Duke connection. But I can figure out who you should speak to if I know exactly what you're interested in. So I would say, do your outreach during, work hours, and also be very specific. And then just have a little patience. It may not be that someone gets back to you that day, but they, hopefully will get back to you. And I would say if you don't hear from them in like 3 days, then it's okay to just say, again, appreciate any time you can contribute to this discussion. But if you send 2 emails and you don't hear from them, they're probably not going to be in a position at that time to help you. So I would say continue on with your network.
Yeah, I was just.
Or Jonas?
Sorry. No, sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer. Sorry.
Oh, thanks, Jonas. Lori, I think that was great advice. I was going to mention, I think being specific helps me to help someone else, right? When I don't have to think, because I think I'm already overwhelmed with having to think about things, and, to have another ask that I have to figure out is just complicated. For me right now, it is a really difficult time because the work pace has not changed. There are just, frequent Zooms throughout the day, coupled with the fact that I now don't have support. Can you go fax this? Can you send this signed agreement there? Like, I have to take the calls, do all these meetings, plus do these other more administrative tasks that I didn't have to do before. So it just has made my day longer. And so if I am not as responsive, it's not because I don't want to be helpful. It's just that I'm still trying to manage the additional responsibilities that I have now working from home. And so I do appreciate when people follow up with me. I'm not bothered by it. I think, if there's someone who you're interested in talking with, if you should come across something, you've read an article that you think may be of interest, sharing that article. Again, also just sending people updates about where you are in your own search, and just kind of letting people know, this is what I've done, this is who I've met, this is who I'm interested in meeting. Do you happen to know any of these people? Do you have any insight on these people, any insight on these businesses? But I may be that person who doesn't respond the first 2 times. I want to, but I'm still just managing life. And so I'm not bothered, and I appreciate when people continue to just follow up, because I will get around to it.
Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot to add to the great advice you've already heard. I think I would just only note that part of being prepared for that outreach is really to do your homework. Try as best as you can to actually know what the job is that the person you're reaching out to does. Now, it may not always be apparent from looking at LinkedIn or whatever, but it's surprising that with a little bit of Google searching, you can find out a good bit about what someone's role is and what they do. And that'll lead you both to reach out to better people, you know, who can help you more and are more aligned with your interests, but it'll also help you, you know, not use up the time of people who are going to look at your email and go, you know, okay, like I do content distribution. Like, why are you asking me about like XYZ thing about film production? Like, I can't help you. Or frankly, even if your outreach is just, I see that you know person X and I have less connection with them, would you be willing to introduce me to them? That's even, I think, better preparation than just, you know, purely like, I see you went to Duke and this company name is on your, you know, LinkedIn page. Can you help me out? But, you know, the other thing is, I think the word respectful was used at the beginning of the question. And I think that's really the key, right? Like, everyone is at a very different place. Some people right now, if you're me, you're learning what taking care of a 2-year-old all day is like. If you're other people, you actually might have more time to give depending on your circumstances, just because if you're, you know, if you're isolated and quarantined by yourself, you know, you may be spending basically all of your social time on Zoom. So you just really never know what circumstance someone's in. And you just have to be respectful of whatever it is. And, you know, don't take sort of a non-response or a no personally. You know, it's not personal. We're all here being on panels like this so we can help. But, you know, if we're unable to, we're not able to. And someone else hopefully will step up.
Thank you guys. That was really great advice. I think, you know, being specific in an email is a very important skill for us to have. And it's great that we're able to impart that knowledge in everyone on this call. And I'm glad to hear more advice from you guys in the future. And so this next question is going to be directed at Karen and Ben. So you've both done a variety of different roles and you've been in a variety of different companies for the past part of your career. So we're just curious to know, like, as you've navigated these roles and been in your industry, what drew you ultimately to pursue this direction that you did right now? How does it compare to working in other roles in your company / industries? And Karen, if you could go first.
Sure. Well, I've been at my present firm for so long, it's sort of hard to think back, but I do know I was always trying to figure out from when I was at Duke, you know, what I wanted to do after Duke. And I really looked at my undergraduate time as like a rare opportunity to try different things that I would never have the chance to try again. So I always knew I wanted to do something in media / the arts. I was always interested in writing. So, you know, I wrote for the Chronicle. I was a public policy major because there was a media internship aspect to it. So I spent the summer working on the Larry King show at CNN in DC. And I was just trying out different, you know, I thought maybe print media wasn't it, so maybe broadcast media was it. And then after that internship, I thought, you know, maybe I should take the same skills that I apply to writing and that I like for journalism and think about law school. When I was in law school, I worked in-house at what was then Capital Cities / ABC and is now Disney / ABC in Lincoln Center. And I worked in-house there in their labor relations group. And I got to see what that was like. And then when I graduated law school, I specifically looked to be a summer associate prior to graduation and then to go back after graduation to a firm that had an entertainment and media practice, which in New York is a pretty small group. And I knew I was originally from New York. I loved living in Durham and I loved Duke, but I knew I wanted to go back to New York. Probably would have been maybe a little bit easier if I had gone to LA where there are a bit more opportunities. But it worked out. You know, I worked at a great firm. I had a great mentor there, and then came to my current firm. And I would just say, just always be thinking about what is it that you enjoy about what it is that you're experiencing and what what aspects of it do you maybe think you could be a better fit elsewhere? If it's not, you know, your dream job, what are your skills that you enjoy using that you're good at? And just keep trying to find the right situation for you. I feel very, very fortunate to be in the situation that I'm in.
Yeah, that's great advice. You know, my career path was actually, it's funny, it was really cast when I graduated from Duke. I took the business of sports class in the markets and management program, the first iteration of it. And the professor is a guy named Gary Stevenson, kind of a legend in the sports media business. He's currently the deputy commissioner at Major League Soccer, but he was in Raleigh at the time, consulting, and he was teaching. And he had lined up about a dozen internships in the sports business for his students, which was incredible. And I went to him and said, you know, I'm really interested in this, and thought I'd like to, you know, go work for the NFL or one of the teams, or you know, one of the kind of traditional leagues that he had lined up. And he said, you know, you seem really interested in the media side of the business. I think you should take the Comcast internship. And I was sort of like, Comcast? Like, who wants to go work for the cable company? You know, why would I want to do that? And he said, you know, I think they're going to be an important player in the industry the next decade, and you'll get to touch a lot of different things, see a lot of different things. And I trusted him, and kind of, he was a good mentor to me. And so I took that advice and ended up at Comcast, and sort of loved it, and fell in love with sort of the distribution content side of the business, more so than the live event team league business. And, you know, I was a consultant after that, negotiating content deals, representing leagues, teams, doing their rights deals with the networks. And what really attracted me to Facebook, I always thought my next move might be at a network, you know, ESPN, NBC Sports, something like that. But just the opportunity to kind of almost have a mid-career reset, you know, Facebook, Netflix, all these places that a lot of us work, YouTube, Google, like that didn't exist when we were coming out of school. So there's more opportunities than ever before to get into the content side of the business, the distribution side of the business. And frankly, I almost feel like I'm getting paid to go to work and see the insides of social media and digital and tech and how all this stuff works. So clearly, you know, we are not a sports company, and that's sort of been the most interesting thing in my first, you know, 18 months at the company. You know, we don't operate like an ESPN. You know, they do rights deals that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years long in some cases. Whereas at Facebook, it's really that tech ethos of test and learn, make mistakes, break things, pivot every 6 months till you find something that works. That really clashes with the traditional kind of sports rights and overall content industry. And so it's really fun being on that side and trying to do new things, but it's also difficult because you can't always get the things and the partnerships done because you're at odds with how leagues, teams, rights holders run their business. So that's been my path. I've always been on the content side, the distribution side, which is a lot of fun. I feel like, you know, the team league business is tough. I see Derek down there in the corner. You know, if you're working for a team that has LeBron, that's awesome. But if you're at the arena, you know, 40, 80 days a year, that can be a grind, particularly as you get older and have a family. You have to really love that side if that's what you want to do.
Thank you so much, Karen and Ben. It sounds like you both had really impactful experiences during your time at Duke that led you to where you are now. And I'm sure a lot of us on this call are really glad to hear that. So along a similar vein, our next question is for Derek and Kelsey. And that question is, what are some ways you applied your Duke experience in and out of the classroom to your current job, as well as what opportunities do you suggest students take advantage of while still at Duke, now remotely or on campus?
So yeah, I think this is an interesting question that I appreciate, and I think my answer normally surprises people. So for me on campus, I was a student manager for the men's basketball team, and so I obviously was up close and personal with basketball every single day, and so did not come to Duke to be an athlete, but had the same schedule as the star basketball player. And when I think about the work that I do now, I obviously learned a tremendous amount from Coach K every day, but it's really, as someone said earlier, you forget often like, this is a business. It's fun, it's live entertainment, sure. But I got to the Heat after LeBron James. And so our business strategy was figure this out quickly, right? Like things we didn't have to worry about previously, like retail merchandise revenue, right? Was now a sudden priority for us. And so I think the biggest thing that I often recommend to people is like, again, learn the business side of it and find the activities that I think allow you to align different perspectives, to really push an agenda, to rally support for a cause. And for me, one of the things I was also involved in on campus was student government. And I think a lot of the skills that I apply in my role today are a result of the things I learned being in student government. I have to constantly talk to my counterparts at other teams and try to rally a cause when we each have our individual buckets of business concerns, but there's something specific that we think the league should be addressing. And so I often reflect on, doing that on campus for issues that students were concerned about. So, I also would say, while probably in this remote situation, someone also, I think Kristen recommended earlier, like, if you can just get to Miami and get there on a game day, we're in the building, send an email that morning, let's grab a coffee, you're a Duke student interested in learning more, or you're a Duke alum. That was really helped me grow in the sports business, and popping up in cities and trying to meet with different people in the sports world, and just getting that 15 minutes of their time. So I think, that's one good strategy. And also just research, particularly for working in the NBA, we're kind of all over the place. And again, if I can't help you, or if it's not something that you're interested in that I do specifically, I may be able to point you in the right direction. But only if you can develop those like research skills, those writing skills, the getting to the point, getting there succinctly. I think all of those, any activity that builds those things in, are really helpful to me today.
Yeah, I mean, I think Derek said mostly everything I was going to say. I think I totally agree with research. I was lucky enough to be in Duke Venture Forward at Duke. I think that's called something else now, Duke Business Society or something. And then I did Duke in LA as an undergrad, which was really nice because it was basically a semester where I could go to LA and just research and explore and meet people and talk about it. I think that's a huge part. Like, you really have to just like keep learning. I think that's what I learned at Duke. And like, you have to understand that film finance, if anyone's interested in it, is very different from normal finance, like a green light model, ultimates. These are not things that other industries generally use. So like, make sure you really understand it, and even try doing some of it technically. Try learning by yourself. Like, a lot of this stuff after banking, because I worked in industrials banking, like, you just learn yourself, and you got to buckle down and have the initiative. And what Craig was saying earlier too, I also took a class at UCLA Extension when I first got into entertainment. They have a great film finance class that you can just take at night. So just like, keep learning, keep going. I think those are kind of the biggest things. And just like, really be strong technically for finance, because then you can build your reputation. And I think that's about it. Do your research.
Great. Yeah, no, it sounds like a theme that keeps coming up, doing your homework, meeting people, and just putting yourself out there. That's, what you need to do. Pivoting a little bit more from the business side of things to the creative side of things, direct this next question. Would love to hear from Kristen first, then Jonas and Derek. Being on the business side, do you think that you can continue to pursue creative opportunities while you are on the business side of entertainment, or once you kind of choose that side, are you locked into that? And personally, how have you tried to stay creative in your role in addition to your day-to-day business duties?
I do think that the number of hours required in the job would make it difficult to have a whole lot of other creative pursuits at the same time. I think what comes to mind would be people who are interested in being writers. that is probably the job that would be easiest to pursue at the same time that you are working on the business side. I've got a good friend that works with me at Netflix as a lawyer, and he gets up every morning early and writes for 2 hours, and he writes screenplays and hopes to sell them one day. We had an assistant at CAA who sold a screenplay to Disney, which was fantastic. So I think there are writers all over Los Angeles doing all kinds of things to pay the bills. It would be difficult to be auditioning to be an actor, I think, and then also responsible for deal making at the same time. I don't know how those two would work. I do think you could move into being a creative producer, and learning the business side first would maybe be very helpful. So it's not impossible. It is difficult, and I don't think easy to move from the business side over to the creative side. And for me personally, unless you want to count my creative deal making, I'm not sure I'm terribly creative during the day, and just have hobbies to sort of fill out that aspect of myself rather than anything at work.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I actually am one of those writers. Like I wrote a novel a couple years ago, not since I've been in my current job, but I did get something to put in the drawer at least before my job became totally and completely overwhelming. Look, I would tell anyone, like, if you're really serious about being a creative, like if you want to be a film director, you should get off this call and go to film school, right? But I think that it's a little bit difficult to appreciate when you're not in this business, the way that business people can impact the creative side, number one. I mean, just to take a really obvious example, did Robert Iger have a significant impact on the creative direction of the Walt Disney Company? I would say he did. But the other thing that I think is a really good piece of advice that one of my really good friends in the industry gave me, who kind of went from my job to roles that were increasingly more directly close to the creative, if you will, was really that. It's just like, I just kept seeking opportunities to get closer and closer to the content. So she went from distribution to second run acquisition with Netflix. Then she was acquiring originals for Facebook. Then she was at MGM, and now she's at a small production house. Still as a business person, but I mean, the whole company has 35 people. So she's involved in everything that goes on there every day. And I think, the way that you can do something like what she did, was really like, and I've tried to do this a little bit, is really just, raise your hand. If you have opportunities where you are, like I know NBCUniversal is great about this, they'll just let me sometimes pitch in on projects with other departments that are not necessarily directly related to my main day-to-day job. But when I've had opportunities to help, I've raised my hand. And so I've gotten to meet a lot of people that do a lot of different things at the company, including the Peacock acquisition work I'm doing right now, that, I wouldn't have if I just kind of sat back and just did the same stuff that I had been doing for the past several years.
So yeah, similar to Jonas, I, previous to this role, wrote a children's book as a way to sort of get in touch with my creative side. But our game schedule does not allow me to be as sort of creative on that side as much anymore. But how I like to think about it, and I think on the business strategy side of sports, it's a unique and interesting opportunity because I think that each day I get to sort of flex a different creative muscle in solving business problems and challenges. And so what strategy we may employ for increasing season ticket sale revenue in the beginning of the season may be completely different after the trade deadline, for instance. And so that's a quick turnaround for our team to really dive into something, learn the subject matter quickly, find out the problem, and come up with a solution that maybe has not necessarily been done before for some of the challenges that we're seeing today, particularly in this context of coronavirus and live entertainment. we at the Heat and our team, and a few teams are really good about this, but we really look at other industries for being successful at our sort of day-to-day. We're constantly at meetings or looking at what Apple and Facebook and Google are doing, so that we can make sure that we're being proactive in how we think about how we can solve some of the problems we foresee. And obviously leveraging technology to do that. So those are really exciting moments for me. In the off season, me and the team head to Disney World up to Orlando to just sort of get creative, get some inspiration for our start of our season.
Great, thank you so much. I think it's great that we're able to, stay with the business side, but also look at other creative opportunities. Additionally, if you would like to contact any of our speakers, all of their emails have been posted in the chat. Please feel free to contact them. We'd love to hear from you. Additionally, a little bit more of a pivot back to our current pandemic. So this question is for Lori and Craig. Both of you work in creative industries with media content, YouTube and Quibi. How do you think the impact of the pandemic will affect the future of your industries? And we could start with Lori first, would that be great?
So I do all the content deals for YouTube TV and Google Fiber, and basically, both of those products have seen an increase in viewership and watch time. And in the case of YouTube TV, we've seen more people sign up for the service because everyone's at home, they want to watch TV. So if you were a cord cutter or you never subscribed to pay television, you might be doing that right now because you've got time, and also you want to keep up with news and entertainment. So we have seen some uplift from the pandemic, but at the same time, as was referenced earlier, we've seen an entire category of content go dark, and that's sports. And obviously one of the primary reasons that people subscribe to live television is for sports. And it's been interesting because our subscribers are obviously, finding different content to watch while sports isn't available. And yet we know that there's this pent-up demand for it. If you look at the ratings from The Last Dance or the NFL draft, like, people really want anything sports related they can get. But we don't know when it's going to come back. And, we just announced a deal last week with Viacom CBS. And one of the big discussion topics was, how do we address, network deals when one of the primary value drivers on that network is sports? And it's really created a new set of terms that are incorporated into deals around how that gets addressed if they go dark, because no one saw this coming and our deals didn't address it in the past. So it's been fascinating to watch the evolution of how what has happened in the world has quickly found its way to revising our approach to content partnerships, and that is being memorialized in deals.
I mean, just to add on to that, I mean, right, I think we've seen good things and challenging things, right, as a result of the pandemic. The good thing is people are watching, and consuming entertainment more than ever, right? So we're in the right business, for people, and that's always a good thing. The challenging thing is the pandemic now seems to have accelerated in enormous ways things that are going on in the business, right? And so the acceleration I'm talking about is old distribution models are now been forced to change. I mean, movie theaters where everybody had the window for the movie theater, and now you have, whether it be Universal or I think it's Warner Brothers, I think it's this week, is they're putting out a movie direct to consumer all of a sudden, right? That's been something that's been talked about forever. Even Quibi is, we were coming into the space now anyway, and as other streamers, you're now accelerating the business of on-demand content. I mean, all of these things are out there changing, and I think the traditional sort of business model that's out there is what's disappearing. So that simple thing of, oh, this is the window of where you get your entertainment, how you get your entertainment, and how it would flow through the system is going to change. And I think what all companies are learning, whether it be Quibi or others, we all now have to be very nimble because things happen that we weren't planning for. And you just can't rely on the traditional. What are you going to do if you're a network who primarily had sports? You got to pivot. What if you were a service who was launching and one of your primary use cases was to be on the go moments when no one's on the go, right? So Quibi, we had to think about, sort of changing our product some to deal with that. And I'm sure every one of us, everywhere we are, is having a very similar experience of we've all had to pivot in probably ways in the past nobody did, because some of these business models were just so entrenched. You didn't have to worry about it because there weren't the means. I mean, you had to go see a movie in a movie theater because there was no way to get it to you on demand immediately, and all of that kind of stuff, and dealing with how sports is changing. So, I mean, I think if anything we've learned from the pandemic now is, right, you do need to be able to modulate and sort of change much more rapidly than you ever had to before.
And I just chime in and add, for us, it's funny, we recently were in a meeting to really debrief. I think a lot of people might have seen some of the backlash from the horse competition, right? Where we thought that this was entertainment that people wanted to see. We wanted to give people basketball something to watch. And the response we got was, thanks, however, we prefer this version of it, or we want this quality or this style of play. We want to see teams. And so I think, as Craig mentioned, as we were kind of rapidly pivoting and trying new things and things we didn't know we would have to figure out, as all of our models kind of rely on, or ours especially relies on sort of that live experience that we deliver. It's both being able to react, but also thinking again about knowing the business and what your consumer actually still wants in this time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that these kind of unprecedented times are maybe allowing us to develop skills in a new way that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And so we have just about 5 minutes left. And this last question is going to be open for any panelist who really feels like they have a solid answer or just want to chime in on it. So feel free to jump in. And this question is, how have initiatives for greater diversity changed the landscape of your industry?
I could point out one change. I mean, just looking out at the programming that populates, the programming guides in the year 2020 compared to even 10 years ago, there are people on television who look just like everyone in this room. And that wasn't true 15 or 20 years ago, right? You could look at a platform like Netflix with, Hassan Minhaj or Aziz having, their program, right? That's someone like me. Whereas when I started my career in the music industry, I was like the only brown person working at a record label. So, seeing the extent to which those initiatives are actually resulting in an end product that reflects our population as a whole and the really high bar that everyone can bring to the table, it's really refreshing. And I think it's just a testament to the fact that, great storytelling doesn't have any boundaries or specific parameters, and we're seeing that now more than ever before.
This is Kristen. Thanks, Vipul, for the Netflix shout out. We'll take it. And I was thinking the same thing as you were saying it, that there have been in my 2 years at Netflix, tremendous initiatives to bring a more diverse group of employees to the company and to hire worldwide, because the people in worldwide offices often have better relationships with local filmmakers, can tell more authentic local stories, and then we're always pleased and shocked at seeing those travel. And I do think in a very divisive world where we are now, there is something to be said for learning about other points of view and perspectives through storytelling and authentic stories. So I think it's sort of a cycle that can feed itself.
Yeah,
Hey, it's Craig.
Sunshine.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Craig. Just wanted to add. Go ahead. I just wanted to add that at Hello Sunshine, we have actually an all-female management team, which is kind of refreshing and new, because like the mission of Hello Sunshine is really to change kind of the narratives for women. So I think on the business side too, you see more and more women and people of color. I mean, like, it's all about the glass ceiling and being able to break into the senior ranks, right? And really, I think you see a lot of progress on that side as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, not only, and I, as people will agree, not only is this now, obviously, it's always been and continues to be the right thing to do. I think more of us are finding also, which will accelerate this, it's the smart business thing to do, which always helps these initiatives go along, because so much of us are now in the direct-to-consumer business where people have individual choice, right? It's not just you get NBC and it's kind of just broad to everybody, right? But I deal with, I have every individual consumer who has a choice to either sign up for my service or not. And so making sure you have programming that appeals and looks like, your customer. I mean, one of our number one tenets at Quibi is be the audience. And for us, that means have our shows look like our audience, have our staff look like our audience, and be reflective that way. So it's not even just, like I said, it's not even just the right thing to do morally. It's actually turned into a very, very important and necessary business initiative, which usually makes these things accelerate. So it'll be the thing that we do, for both reasons.
Great. Well, I think those are incredible notes to end on. Just want to give a big thank you to all of our panelists again for joining us tonight. Thank you to the audience for joining us tonight. This has been great, and really appreciate everyone taking the time. As Amy has been posting in the chat, see the chat to watch all prior Demon Live episodes. This one will go up there pretty soon, and there's more to come this summer, including skill workshops and additional Demon Live episodes. So again, everyone, thank you very much. Stay safe and stay well, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for making time. And great job to our moderators.